5 shapes stepped out of the shadows and closed the corridor in front of me before I could even reach for my badge. I stopped walking. My boots scraped against the metal floor of Station Kelvoran, and the sound echoed down the empty hallway like a warning bell. The lights above flickered, painting the walls in a dull orange glow. I had exactly 6 minutes to reach the shuttle bay before the station sealed every exit for the night cycle. 6 minutes, and now 5 armored warriors stood between me and my only way out. They were Krasthul. I recognized the ridged plating on their shoulders, the long limbs built for a world with lighter gravity than mine, the weapons strapped across their backs that they rarely needed to use, because most species simply gave up the moment they saw 5 of them standing together. Each one was easily twice my height. Their skin had a gray-blue shine under the corridor lights, like polished stone. The one in front tilted his head at me. His voice came out low and rough, like gravel dragged across metal. "Human, this path belongs to us tonight. Turn back." I did not turn back. I could not. My crew was waiting at the shuttle, and the cargo we carried was the only thing standing between our small trading post and complete collapse. If I did not reach that shuttle in time, everything we had worked for over the last 3 years would be gone. "I need to get through," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I am not looking for trouble." The warrior laughed, and the other 4 joined him, a low rumbling sound that filled the corridor. One of them, shorter than the rest but built wider, stepped forward and crossed his arms. "5 of us," he said. "One of you. Even your own kind would call this unfair. To us." I understood then what he meant. Among the Krasthul, standing 5 against 1 was not seen as a threat. It was seen as a courtesy. Their entire culture was built on trials of strength, and to them, 5 warriors blocking one soft, fragile human was almost generous. They expected me to bow my head, apologize, and creep away like every other traveler who had made the mistake of crossing their path this late in the station cycle. I did not bow my head. Instead, I lifted my wrist slightly, just enough to bring the small calm bead hidden under my sleeve close to my lips. I kept my eyes on the warrior in front of me the entire time, and I whispered 5 words that none of them expected. "Bring 10 more." For a moment, nobody moved. The warriors looked at each other, confused, then amused. The lead warrior threw his head back and laughed harder this time, a booming sound that bounced off the corridor walls. "10 more," he said. "You call for reinforcements that do not exist? There is no one else on this deck, human. Your ship has already been flagged. Your crew is scattered across 3 different sections of this station, trying to find each other. You are alone." He was right about one thing. My crew was scattered. But he was wrong about everything else. I stayed quiet. I did not explain myself. I simply stood there, feet planted, hands calm at my sides, and I began counting in my head. 10 seconds. 20. The warriors shifted uncomfortably, unsure why I was not afraid, unsure why I had not tried to run or beg or fight. To understand why I was not afraid, you would need to understand what had happened 6 hours earlier, long before I ever stepped into this corridor. My name is Elena Marsh, and I am the systems engineer for a small independent trading vessel called the Wandering Finch. We are not soldiers. We are not diplomats with fancy titles or fleets behind us. We are traders, 5 people trying to survive out on the edge of known space, buying and selling whatever keeps our engines running and our stomachs full. Station Kelvoran is a neutral trading post, run loosely by an alliance of species who mostly tolerate each other as long as business stays profitable. The Krasthul control most of the security contracts here, and they enjoy reminding everyone else exactly how much power that gives them. 6 hours before I found myself trapped in that corridor, my captain, a quiet man named Daniel Okafor, gathered the 4 of us in the cargo hold and told us something had gone wrong. The trade deal we had come here to complete had fallen apart. The Krasthul faction running station security had decided our cargo, medical supplies meant for a struggling colony 3 systems away, was more valuable to them than to us. They planned to seize it under some invented technicality before we could leave. Daniel did not panic. He never did. He looked around at each of us, and he asked a simple question. What do we have that they don't understand? Our engineer, a sharp young woman named Priya Anand, answered first. Gravity, she said. Every station like Kelvorin runs on artificial gravity plating, generated by massive fields built into the floor and walls of every corridor and room. Most species who live and work on these stations calibrate their sections to match their homeworld's gravity. The human sections run close to Earth standard. The Krasthul sections run much lighter, because their homeworld has less than half the gravity we are used to. Their bodies are built for that lightness. Their bones are less dense. Their muscles, though powerful in their own gravity, are not built to fight against something heavier. Priya had spent the last 2 years studying the station's maintenance systems, while we waited out slow trade negotiations in port. She knew the gravity plating like she knew her own hands. She knew which control nodes fed which sections, and she knew that with the right access codes, a localized field spike could be triggered in a specific corridor for a short burst of time. The plan came together quickly. While Daniel negotiated a delay with station officials, buying us time, our pilot, a calm and steady man named Victor Solis, powered up the wandering Finch and prepared it for a fast departure. Our medic, a woman named Fiona Marlowe, moved our cargo into the shuttle bay under the cover of routine transport, disguising crates of medical supplies as standard trade goods, and Priya, working from a maintenance terminal 3 decks below, rigged the gravity plating in the connecting corridor between the trade offices and the shuttle bay. The trigger word was simple. If I ever found myself blocked, cornered, with no other way out, I would whisper 5 words into my comm bead, and Priya would know exactly what to do. Bring 10 more. It was not a call for reinforcements. It was a code. 10 more meant 10 times the standard gravity load, spiked directly into the corridor section I was standing in. Not enough to hurt me, because I would be ready, pre-dosed with a stabilizing compound Fiona had prepared, muscles braced, breathing controlled. But more than enough to overwhelm 5 warriors built for a lighter world. Back in the present, standing in front of 5 armored Krasthul, who had no idea what was coming, I finished my count. 30 seconds had passed since I whispered those words. I felt a faint hum begin beneath my boots, a vibration rising up through the floor plating like the station itself was taking a breath. The lead warrior noticed it too, his head tilted, confusion crossing his sharp features. "What is that sound?" he asked, more to his companions than to me. I did not answer. I simply took one small step back, bracing my legs the way Fiona had shown me, keeping my knees soft and my weight low. The hum grew louder. The lights along the corridor flickered again, this time longer, dimming to a deep amber before snapping back to full brightness. And then it hit. I felt the pull first, a heavy pressure settling across my shoulders and chest, like someone had draped a thick blanket over me made of lead. My knees bent under the sudden weight, but I had expected it, and my body absorbed the pressure the way Fiona had trained me to, breathing out slowly, keeping my center low. The 5 warriors did not have that warning. The lead warrior staggered first, his knees buckling beneath armor that suddenly felt like it weighed 3 times what it had a moment ago. The others followed almost instantly, their long limbs, built for lightness and speed, suddenly betraying them under a gravity field that had jumped far beyond anything their bodies were designed to handle. One warrior dropped to one knee with a heavy clang of metal against the floor. Another stumbled sideways into the corridor wall, his weapon slipping from fingers that no longer had the strength to hold it steady. "What is this?" the shorter warrior shouted, his voice strained, higher than before. "What have you done?" I straightened as much as I could under the pressure, forcing my voice to stay calm, even as my own muscles burned with the effort of standing upright. "You said 5 against 1 was generous," I said. "I decided to even the odds a little more." The lead warrior tried to push himself back to his feet, his massive arms trembling with the effort. He managed to rise halfway before the weight forced him back down, one hand braced against the floor to keep from collapsing completely. His eyes, wide with confusion and something close to disbelief, locked onto mine. "You cannot survive this either," he said, his voice tight. "This crushes us both." He was almost right. The pressure pressing down on my body was immense, far beyond anything I would normally be able to withstand for long. My lungs strained with every breath, and my legs shook with the effort of staying upright. But there was a difference between us that he could not see. My body, shaped by a world with gravity closer to what this field now demanded, could bend without breaking. His could not. I took one careful step forward, then another, moving slowly, deliberately, through the space between the struggling warriors. Every step felt like wading through deep water, my muscles screaming with the effort. But I kept moving, because I knew exactly how long this spike would last. Priya had built it to hold for 90 seconds before automatically resetting to normal levels, just enough time for me to cross the corridor, and not enough time to cause any of them lasting harm. We were not here to hurt anyone. We were here to leave. As I passed the lead warrior, still struggling to rise, I paused just long enough to speak. "You built your whole life around being strong enough to make others yield," I said. "But strength only matters if you understand the room you are standing in. I know this station better than you do. That is not a threat. That is just a fact." He did not answer. He could not with the effort it took just to keep his chest from being pinned flat against the floor. I kept moving, each step heavier than the last, until finally, I reached the far end of the corridor, where it opened into the connecting hallway leading toward the shuttle bay. The moment I crossed the threshold out of the affected section, the pressure lifted instantly, like a hand releasing its grip on my shoulders. I stumbled forward, catching myself against the wall, my chest heaving as I pulled in deep, grateful breaths of air. Behind me, the hum began to fade, and I knew the field would reset any second now, releasing the 5 warriors from the weight that had pinned them down. I did not wait around to see it happen. I pushed off the wall and ran. The shuttle bay came into view ahead, its wide doors already sliding open as my footsteps triggered the proximity sensors. Inside, I could see the wandering Finch, engines glowing a soft blue, ready for departure. Victor stood at the base of the ramp, waving me forward with quick, urgent motions. "Elena, move!" he shouted. "Lockdown alarm just triggered station-wide. We have maybe 2 minutes before every door on this deck seals." I sprinted the last stretch of corridor, my legs still aching from the gravity spike, but grateful for how light they now felt in comparison. I hit the ramp at full speed, and Victor grabbed my arm, pulling me up and into the ship as the engines began to whine louder, preparing for launch. Inside, Fiona was already strapped into her seat near the cargo hold, checking the crates of medical supplies one last time to make sure everything had survived the rushed loading. Daniel sat in the pilot's chair beside Victor's now empty seat, his hands moving quickly over the controls, requesting emergency clearance from station traffic control before the lockdown could trap us inside the bay. "Priya," I said, dropping into the seat beside Fiona and pulling my straps tight. "Is she clear?" "Already back on board," Fiona said, nodding toward the rear of the ship. She sealed the maintenance terminal behind her and sprinted here the second the field reset. She said to tell you that was the best trigger phrase she has ever gotten to use. I let out a short laugh, more relief than humor, as the ship shuddered beneath us and the engines roared to full power. Through the small viewport beside my seat, I watched the shuttle bay doors begin sliding shut behind us, station alarms flashing red across the walls. "Clearance granted," Daniel called from the front. "Hold on, everyone, we are leaving." The wandering Finch lifted off the bay floor and shot forward through the closing doors with barely a few meters to spare, bursting out into open space just as the station's outer hull lights flared with the deep red glow of a full lockdown. Behind us, Station Kelvoran shrank smaller and smaller in the viewport, its silhouette outlined against the stars, until it was nothing more than a distant point of light. I leaned my head back against my seat and closed my eyes, letting my breathing finally slow down. My muscles ached everywhere, a deep, tired soreness that reminded me just how close that had all come to going very differently. "You really told them to bring 10 more?" Fiona asked, a small grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Out loud? To their faces?" "I whispered it," I said. "There's a difference." "They must have thought you had a small army waiting around the corner," she said. "I did," I answered, "just not the kind they were expecting." Priya appeared from the back of the ship, dropping into the seat across from us with a satisfied look on her face, like someone who had just watched a plan she built with her own hands work exactly the way she designed it. "The look on their faces when the field spiked," she said, shaking her head. "I wish I could have seen it in person instead of just the sensor readings." "Trust me," I said. It was worth seeing. Daniel's voice came back over the ship's intercom from the front, calm as always. Everyone strapped in? We have a clear jump window in 4 minutes. Let's not waste it sitting around congratulating ourselves. Copy that, Victor called back, already running through the navigation checks. I looked out the viewport one more time at the shrinking shape of the station behind us, thinking about the 5 warriors still recovering somewhere in that corridor, probably furious, probably already telling their commanders some version of the story where they had been ambushed by an entire hidden squad of humans, rather than outsmarted by careful planning and a well-timed whisper. Let them tell it that way. It did not matter to me how the story spread through the station's security channels. What mattered was that my crew was safe, our cargo was intact, and somewhere, 3 systems away, a struggling colony would receive the medical supplies they desperately needed. The stars outside the viewport shifted, stretching into long streaks of light as the ship prepared for its jump, and I felt the familiar pull of acceleration press me gently back into my seat. This was the part of every job I loved most, the quiet moment after the danger had passed, when all that remained was the open dark of space and the steady hum of engines carrying us somewhere new. Somewhere behind us, on a station that had underestimated exactly how much planning could fit into 5 quiet words, a lesson was being learned the hard way. Strength was not always about size, or armor, or the number of warriors standing shoulder to shoulder in a corridor. Sometimes it was about knowing your surroundings better than anyone else in the room, about trusting your crew to be exactly where they promised to be, and about understanding that the most dangerous thing you can whisper to an enemy is not a threat at all. It is simply the truth, spoken quietly enough that they do not realize what it means until it is already too late. I closed my eyes as the jump engines engaged, letting the hum of the wandering Finch carry me toward whatever came next, already certain that this would not be the last time someone underestimated exactly what a single human, standing calm and steady in the face of 5 armed warriors, was truly capable of doing.